Welcome to the Evergreen Church Life Podcast. The Bible tells us in the book of Philippians that we, as believers, need to be unified in our mission to know God, share life, and change the world. We have a lot going on at Evergreen. We want to help cultivate that culture of unity. The strategy of this podcast is simple. We sit down with ministry leaders here in our church and talk about how God is working around them.
Okay, we are here with Daniel Schlagel. He is, besides having the funnest name to say of all of our staff members, he's the executive director of operations. Daniel, appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
So we've interviewed a number of our team and how they fit into life at Evergreen. And so right out of the gate, why does your role exist and how does it contribute to life here at Evergreen?
Sure. Well, the role has really shifted over the years. For the first 20 years of Evergreen, Pastor Jerry Voris really handled everything. There was plenty to do, but it was able to be done either in-house well enough or he could just contract it out. But in the last 5 to 6 years, everything has just grown so much. We have more than twice as many people. We have more people using the facility. We have, double the staff, more than that. And so everything has just gotten more complex, and it's also, there's just more pieces to it all. And so my role has really had to absorb that and help coordinate a lot of those activities. We used to have activities in the building. One of the staff or pastors could just go use a room and not worry about conflict, but now we have rooms being used all throughout the week. And so being able to coordinate that activity is really important. So that's where my role, I really see it as coordination, but stewardship is a big piece of that. My role is to steward the resources that we have, or I shouldn't say me directly, right? My team, as well as the church members and volunteers also participate in that. So stewardship is a big part of that. And really another piece I also see is equipping the pastors in a sense of resourcing them in that sense. We want to give them the ability to do what they need to do. What I do, there is an important part of it, but it's not a core function of the church. I look at Acts 2:42, and when the early church was just born, and it says they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship and to the breaking of bread and prayers. Right? Nowhere was sweeping the floor or the adjusting the house was part of that. And so we don't really see that come into play later until Acts 6 when the deacon ministry is formed, because all of a sudden they're feeding all these widows and all of the functions just are not happening. Things are slipping through the cracks. And so they had to develop some processes, and they had to put people in place over those processes to help make sure everything went smoothly. And, I'm not trying to say that we're the deacons in that sense. That's another theological conversation, but that spirit of the deacon ministry, we want to serve tables so that the pastors can focus on preaching and prayer. And so that's where I really see that's kind of what the operations does. And at this point, this size, my role is to just help coordinate all the pieces of that. So that's the different areas that includes. We've got obviously the facilities and the maintenance of it there.
How big is our facility?
So we're at 162,000 square feet. We're about to add another 40-ish thousand.
So we'll be at about 200,000 square feet.
Right.
And then we sit on 52 acres.
Right at 50 acres.
Okay.
Yeah. So
okay. So it's a lot. The grass needs to be mowed. The lights need to turn on.
That's right.
The air conditioner definitely needs to run.
That's right.
In the summertime. That's kind of the bane of your existence.
Yeah. It is. Well, and we have almost 50 air conditioners, and not just your small household air conditioners.
They're not window units.
Right. Yeah. So there's a lot involved. I mean, that probably keeps the facilities team busy. 75% of the time is just maintaining those air handlers.
Yeah.
So because it's important, you know, for especially in our culture, like sitting in a comfortable environment is really important for us. So
well, any distraction detracts from people being able to learn.
right.
So, you know, we're not, you know, we've all been overseas in different countries where you just crack open the windows and it's perfectly comfortable because they're sitting on the side of a mountain with a breeze, but that is not where we live.
Right.
And we're in a giant building. But you were just talking about even the size of things. And I was curious, like, when did you come on staff?
I came on in 2020.
Okay. And like the church has roughly doubled in size in
Right.
those years, numerically
Correct.
speaking, but and the staff as well.
More than doubled the staff.
More than doubled, yeah. And so with that doubling of size, like with growth comes complexity.
Exactly.
And that's essentially your job. You know, we talk a lot about the Ephesians 4 aspect of equipping the saints for the work of the ministry. That's like our that's the drum we beat at Evergreen and on this podcast.
Because it's in the Bible.
Because it seems important because it's there. But that's what you were saying though, is your job is equipping all of us to do our jobs and to remove those obstacles so we can do whatever the Lord's called us to do efficiently.
Right.
So, like Philip's first question of like why your role exists. So even thinking pre you being on staff, and Jerry was handling everything, and then now you when you came on, you were his associate, or
Yeah. I basically came in to assist him and learn from him and just kind of take in all of that.
yeah, and then your role has shifted as the executive over operations, right?
That's right. Right.
Yeah.
So you work under Scott Meeks.
Correct.
So what are all some of the, I mean, just give us a quick like snapshot. What are the aspects of operations besides the building and mowing the grass?
Sure. You know, for me now, especially as we've developed more of a facility team, Corey Searle is our manager over that, and then Michael Justice and Zachary Mayfield work with him. They really have a good handle on the building, and so they take care of most of those issues you see. Well, maybe you don't see, but they're trying to prevent you from seeing those issues.
You don't notice them until they don't work.
That's right. That's a big part of my role. Is you know, if we're doing our job, you don't notice it. You notice it when something gets missed. So but they really handle a lot of that facility stuff. So now my focus a lot right now is with the events side of things and moving all the pieces and almost like a conductor. You know, I'm making sure the facilities team has what they need and know when to make some shifts, whether it's moving some furniture around or making sure a room is equipped, and then also coordinating with the security, our director of security, Lewis, you know, making sure we've got our security needs covered for events. And then also, you know, I coordinate with Zach now with the AV, Zach Dietz. And so making sure like all of the events have everything they need and that they're equipped to execute their event, whether that's staff and in-house stuff or the users of our building who, you know, we let them use spaces for different things. So.
Yeah. Who all else uses our building other than Evergreen?
Yeah. So we've had partnerships with homeschool co-ops for a while. So 5 days a week we have them in here. Now, obviously, we have the academy in the family building and the learning center. But we also, you know, we're a polling center. So we have people come in for that occasionally, or we've got some recitals, HOA groups. I mean, there's
my HOA meets here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Graduations.
Yeah.
And then just any kind of things that church members, you know, they'll have a birthday party here or graduation parties or, you know, all sorts of unique things that happen. So
Yeah. We've even had Bixby East, which is just down the street from us where my kids go to school. They've had a couple of their graduation and commencements and stuff have happened here in the last couple of years as well. So, our building is used Not 365 days, but maybe 360.
It was funny. So
Just about, yeah.
yesterday we were trying to have a meeting with all the executives and our leadership circle is what we call it, where we're going through leadership material. And we, because of logistics, like I appreciated Daniel yesterday because we went like all over campus trying to find a room to just meet in. It's like, well, nope, not there. Nope, not there. That one's, oh, nope, that one's full. Oh, there's something else going on there. And we finally found some, broom closet somewhere for all of us to sit in and talk about our book. But that's one of the necessary evils of having such a large congregation in a complicated facility. When things start out, things kind of revolve around the personality of a central figure that's kind of the leader. And then because things do get complex, it's like, we've got to put systems in place.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And, Daniel, you do a masterful job of coordinating those things. You have a heart for systems because systems create clarity and structure. But that also means that it creates opportunities for conflict,
Right.
because people are used to just being, hey, I just want to show up and have I'll just grab this room right here and have a meeting, and there's no big deal. And so we've had some growing pains in that. And you've done a good job of doing your best to communicate ahead of time, but then also being gracious as people have been like, well, what do you mean I can't come in here and just have my Bible study with my friends? Mm-hmm. And like, well, somebody else has reserved that space. And
months ago.
Right.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, to that point, I would say systems function kind of like habits.
Yeah.
In our personal life, we develop habits or rituals that we do just to make our life easier. You get up in the morning, you kind of have your ritual of how you get ready. You don't have to think about that. But what it does is it makes sure you get everything put in place before you leave the house. We get to a church like this size, there's a lot of moving pieces. We got to make sure a lot of things are in place. We need to develop habits and rituals, not to use it in the other term.
Be careful with that language there.
But habits for our church life that help us be ready. And that's where as we develop these processes, they're helpful tools for us as staff and as church members, but we never want to miss the fact that we're people and it's relationships. And so if we develop these processes and leave out the relationship part, that's when we get ourselves into trouble in the bureaucracy. And that's the processes that we don't like.
Right.
We just always have to remember these are tools for us in our relationships so that we don't have to communicate about every little thing. That communication is a culture. It's natural.
Mm-hmm. So we're thinking about the role that you play on our staff. If operations was to go away, what impact would that have on the church?
Sure. Everything would blow up.
Some of the air conditioners might actually blow up.
We have some complicated machines.
Yeah.
No, I've thought about this a lot, just because, going back to those purposes of the church, it's not that essential purpose of what the church does, but it's a byproduct of what the church does. I lived in China, and so I know what the church looks like there. They don't have a church building like we do. And so, maybe there's a day when the church in America becomes like that. In one sense, you could see this job kind of goes away, or this role, because there's not a building to maintain, or there's not this massive gathering. But in another sense, you would have coordination. You would have operation that plays out.
Yeah.
And so, if we think along those lines, it could look really different. But regardless, the purpose is that we're trying to keep the machine running. We're trying to get the logistics of meeting together, all of that. So there would have to be some coordination in place to begin with. But I do want to point out on the operations side, the job is not mine alone or my team's, right? In a secular environment, an operations team does all the work. They make sure everything's done. It's their responsibility. But here in a church context, the stewardship is not mine alone. It is us as a church body. We all take ownership in that. My job is to just help facilitate that, to direct it, to coordinate it. And so I could see that if there was good leadership that stepped up in various ways, there could be a team that handles this aspect of operations, whether that's the facility piece and the air conditioner specifically. There could be a way that could function.
Yeah.
So it really is the role of all church members to help us steward
in a
the
healthy
building.
family. Out of sight, out of mind is not a good excuse.
Right.
And so, like we were kind of joking, if you guys are doing your job well, we don't notice it, But just because as a church member, if I don't notice what you're doing, that doesn't mean what you're doing is not important,
Right.
And so I also really liked your analogy of connecting it to the Acts 6 deacons concept, because you were saying like, what is the essential role of the church? Well, it's to equip the saints for the work of the ministry, and that's why in the Acts 6 context, Peter and the others are like, well, it wouldn't be good for us to be busy serving tables. We need to be preaching. So we're going to set aside guys who are, qualified, good Christians to do this role that is important. So that way we can keep doing the more essential thing, which is the gospel,
Right.
and all of us in some capacity in all of our multiple hats that we wear are doing that.
Right.
What are we doing to remove the distractions or the obstacles so that the more important thing is kept essential and it is kept protected, so that way it's not distracted from in any way. But even like a question that might come to mind as we're talking about all this and all the busyness and all the other outside groups and stuff like that, like what is the heart behind us as a church having our doors open to outside groups? Because your job would be less essential if we didn't have dozens and dozens of other people using our building throughout the week. Why do we choose to do that?
Right. So, our work is not directly evangelistic focused or ministry focused because we're moving the gears. But that is the way that we really help contribute ministry in that sense. Is we provide a space. We welcome people in from our community
For the Big C Church.
For the Big C Church, right? And we don't charge them for use of our facility. That way, we want to steward what God has given us and make it available to people. We don't just want it sitting there. But that gives us an opportunity to, welcome them into our place, welcome them into the church if they want to, if they're looking for a church, or just it builds opportunity for relationship that we can share the love of Jesus. I tell my guys, when we interact with people from outside the church, as much as we can, we either want to invite them to church, share the gospel with them, or just ask if they need prayer. And that's just something we try to keep on the forefront so that we remember that even though we're doing these tasks, we're working with our hands, that there still is a ministry component. There's a spiritual element to everything we do, just as believers.
Yeah, we were talking about this kind of with Zach in our previous episodes, where with the creative team of trying to create a welcoming space, like you guys are also doing that same function with them. A well-functioning space is a welcoming space. And so being able to invite people in, it is a work of ministry for them to feel welcomed and to not be distracted and want to return. Not because we're trying to put on like some sugar-coated best face forward type of a thing, but just being hospitable. In order to be hospitable, we need to have things that function well. And I think that, me coming from a context of like church planting and dealing with a lot with, and I worked in the coffee world with secular coffee world for a long time. And it's that regular, slight against the churches. They all have these massive buildings that just sit empty throughout the week. And what are they doing with their building? And, wouldn't that be better if you spent your money elsewhere, and so on and so forth. And so we're not doing it as a counteract to what they say, but it's like literally like, we have a huge building. Why would we just let it sit here empty? Why not let people use it? And so me as like a newer person on staff, I've been here for just over 3 years. I love that aspect about Evergreen, and that we open up the doors for all sorts of people to come and use our facility, not just because it's a utilitarian thing, but because it is a personable, hospitable thing to do, that we have HOAs and homeschool co-op schools and the public school and whoever else comes in and uses our space and all of us who interact with them in any sort of level get that opportunity to be a welcoming face and invite them to church. And I know when I've had those interactions with people on campus, they'll be like, man, this is a nice facility. Like, what time is your church meet on Sundays?
Yeah.
I'll have those conversations regularly when it's outside groups that are here. Right. So good job, Daniel.
Well, thanks. On that, one of the things that I battle in that is that now that we're big and the word has really got out that, you can meet at Evergreen. There's this idea that, we're an event venue.
Yeah.
We're an event space. And that's not really what we're doing here. When we have these groups use our space, we really are welcoming them into our home. We're hosting them. And so, if you had a friend over that was staying for the night, you wouldn't just say, hey, welcome in. There's the couch. You make sure they have what they need. You make sure that there's that they feel comfortable. There's relationship there. You don't just let anybody sleep on your couch, or at least I don't. But that's kind of the view there. It's more than just a facility event venue where it is our church that we welcome people into. Yeah,
that's good. The personal touch of the ministry.
I love the idea of stewardship being at the center of what you do as in operations. I know that's you got a complicated job. So what are some of the things that you would love for people to know about what you do that are not obvious? And maybe what's the hardest thing about about your work day to day?
Yeah. I would say, as far as what I would want people to know, it really does take all of us, to take care of and steward this place. There's lots of little tasks around the church that people don't even know happen. I mean, we have someone that comes in and puts pens and the connection cards behind the worship center chairs. I have someone now that just goes around and changes light bulbs regularly. There's all sorts of little things that needs taking care of. And again, it's not, me and my team cannot steward it alone, right? We're a family. Like, we all have to pitch in together. I think when I first started, people often saw me as the janitor, which, I was willing to clean things and do that. But I alone could not do everything that needs done. And so it really, my role was to facilitate that work, and to provide a space for people to serve in that way.
Even thinking janitorial stuff, like whenever we have events, I know when I was running Reach events and things like that, you guys equip us by having the janitor closets stocked and ready, and us knowing where things are and having even maps of how the rooms are supposed to be laid out. So when we use the space as church members, we are equipped and prepared to mop the floor and vacuum and reset the chairs and all that stuff, because of all the work you guys have done to make sure that there were good systems in place and we have the equipment and everything that we need. And so that is how, as we're doing a ministry Bible study or a fellowship or whatever else, and we're having to use the space, you're equipping us to do the work of the ministry through that by the facility being prepped.
Right, exactly.
So that makes a lot of sense. And I also really like the word of stewardship in that as well, because even when it comes to the hospitality of things, like, why are we supposed to be hospitable? Well, because it's not ours to begin with.
Right.
It's the Lord's, and He has given us as ambassadors and stewards to use our facilities, our resources, whatever, for His glory. And He is a hospitable God. And so it makes sense. That word stewardship really fits well with what you do and how you equip us to do what we do.
And, one of the things that I love about operations is that there are a lot of ways that people can serve in operations that are not the traditional things that people would think of in ministry. Like, when people think of ministry, they think of teaching Bible study classes or preaching in front of the congregation or leading music or, even running slides or tech. But you got a team of guys that mow the lawn. Right. You've got guys who are people who are gifted in mechanics and will go through and work on our machines and make sure that they're running. Or we have a whole fleet of golf carts that run every Sunday that pick people up and take them to the door.
That's right.
All of those things are like real practical ways that you can serve. It's not just like, hey, I need you to come and, even I love the coffee team that makes the coffee on Sunday mornings. Like there's a group of people that get here early and they keep everybody fueled, for the whole morning on Sundays.
Yeah.
And we go through a lot of coffee.
We do.
Yeah.
But I love that, operations is one of those places that literally anybody can serve in any capacity. If you're an introvert and you don't want to really talk to people, if you want to meet everybody that comes in the doors, like there's a place for you in operations. I think it's the most utility and incredible front door into the church as far as like just being able to serve.
Right. Well, and the thing is, God has created each of us differently, and there are people who are incredibly intimidated by getting up and talking in front of people or teaching. I was one of those guys, and so we can still contribute to the overall mission and purpose of the church through doing this. And God has created people for that purpose, and so we want to use those people in the way that God created them to serve the church. And so that's that is one of my goals is finding a place, finding a way that you can use your gifts to serve in the church. And sometimes it takes trying a couple different areas before we really dig in and find it. But
Yeah. Well, if you could sum it up with our vision statement of Know God, Share Life, Change the World, how does operations, either in big or small ways, equip the church to know God, share life, and change the world?
Sure. Well, when I think about knowing God, I think back to Exodus when the Israelites were building the tabernacle, and it talks about how God gifted individuals with skill to craft certain parts of the tabernacle, and really like through that they were able to use their skill to help create the tabernacle where they would come to know God. And so in the same way, I think God has equipped people in our church to use that skill in this way. And through that whole process, they come to know God. They show their love to God through that service. So that's one way I think our service in this way can really help especially those gifted individuals to know and have their relationship with God.
I just had a thought as you were saying that using that analogy of the men who made things for the tabernacle, in the context, those were former slaves. And those trade skills they learned them as a slave.
Right.
And God took their skills and he gave them a special purpose, and he cultivated that so they could use it for the kingdom. But I just had a thought, as a former tradesman myself, like there are people I know that they think, man, I don't have anything to bring to the kingdom of God. I don't have any way to serve. I don't have any way to contribute. And the skills that they've learned out in the world, or maybe before they were saved, like for instance, I think of people who were in the music industry, and they think, man, there's no way that I can, do anything for God because I've done all these things for the world, for chasing my in my sinful time, whatever. But they can be a sound technician, guys who are mechanics, and they're like, man, I'm a blue collar guy. I can't get up and preach like that, but I can fix a lawnmower. Man, I there's no way I could do anything. I'm just a carpenter. Like, well, you can help, build the backdrop for the Mother's Day photos, or you can help repair sheetrock, or you can do those. Like, that's a real thing. Like we bring the skills that God's given us because of our context, and now we're able to contribute to what He's doing. I think it's a beautiful picture of the gospel.
Exactly. And there are so many ways that we need those skills. I mean, that is one of the challenges that I have is there are parts of taking care of this building that require some real skill. And even I don't have the skill to do some of that. I need people to come in and do that. And either I can hire it out, or if we have someone within the church who God has given them that skill and that's how they want to serve the church, we can use that. So yeah.
So what about sharing life?
Yeah, sharing life. So over the years that I've been in this role, I've got to work alongside a number of guys, and what I've really come to to realize is, in thinking about discipleship and relationships, and as I've observed women seem to do well face to face. They do good discipleship face to face. I think us guys have a harder time with that. We do discipleship better shoulder to shoulder, and I've really seen that come to play out. And so as I've served alongside other guys, I've really developed some great relationships and really love these brothers that I've got to work alongside. And I've seen others develop that relationship as they've worked alongside each other. I think back all the way to when I first came to Evergreen in like 2015. I would go to the work days, and we'd trim trees and clean some stuff up around here. And I built some really good relationships early on at Evergreen through working alongside those other guys. So part of serving in the operations, like working on a task together, really draws us closer together, and we can share life more. So that's I think there's a great place for that within the operations.
Yeah, I see that in the Acts 6 ministry, where we go and we serve covenant church members. There's a lot of ministries that serve people outside of the church, but Acts 6 allows us to be able to serve just our covenant members. And that ministry started because they were church members who were falling through the cracks. And that group of men, like, they work on cars and they work on houses, and we'll clean the gutters for our widows and things like that. And we do, like, those are some of my favorite guys that we can actually do life together. I've been on mission trips with them now because of relationships that have cultivated through that. Right.
Well, even the security ministry, I mean, it's becoming such a tight-knit group of guys. Like, they're real tight relationships because they're spending time together, they're serving together, they're working to protect the church together. So something about serving together really draws us closer.
No, I think that's why the Ephesians 4 passage is so profound. It's like our growth happens through serving, and it builds relationships. It changes things.
Right.
So how does operations change the world?
Well, we've kind of touched on this already with the outside groups that we bring in. That's really where I see that happen a lot, just through that welcoming and hospitable piece. But and again, I've mentioned this in other ways, but we're not the tip of the spear, but we are the shaft of the spear, if you will. We're helping propel those proclaiming the gospel forward, those preaching and the teaching. And so I think that's the big way that we contribute towards the change.
And I'd even say talking about the Acts 6 ministry and what we do on campus and all that other stuff. Philip and I just went to Brazil a couple months ago, and it's a lot of those guys who serve in these various volunteer roles that were on that trip that were helping us to build buildings and stuff at the Coffee Mission Network. And so it's even through those things of doing practical things here on campus, brings guys in, gets them connected to the church body, and then gives them opportunity to literally go on mission and to do that worldwide as well. So I think there's an equipping aspect that reaches beyond our 50 acres, as you were talking about earlier, or our 50 air conditioners as well. Well, as we wrap up, Daniel, how are ways that we as a church family can be praying for you in your role as operations director and just you as a church member here?
Sure. I think one of the biggest ways is to be praying for people to fill the roles that we need, specifically those skilled areas. I have certain niche needs that I need just the right person to come in, and so just praying that God would raise up the right people for those roles, but also just wisdom as we continue to grow. There's just so many things that shift and change, and with that, some of our processes have to shift and change. We want to make process shifts wisely. We don't just want to do it for the sake of it, and we want it to be effective. So that would be specifically for me, just wisdom as we develop those processes.
Excellent. Well, Daniel, thank you for coming and being a part of the conversation. Here at the Evergreen Church Life Podcast, we exist to empower our congregation to make a tangible difference in our local context. That means moving beyond just attending to truly knowing God, sharing life, and changing the world. We want everyone to see the richness of the body of Christ and how he's working around us through the ministries of Evergreen. For more podcasts and teaching, please be sure to visit our website, evergreenbc.org.